Awesome! Hello everybody! Super nice to be here at DevRelCon today. I wanted to talk about something that I noticed kind of accidentally, and something that I think a lot of developer advocates might be experiencing without realizing. And that's how at the same time you can have the most social and the loneliest job at the same time. So to give a little bit context on who I am and what I do, my name is Juhis. I work as a developer advocate at Futuris. We are a software consultancy, so we do projects with clients instead of having our own product. So I'm more focused on the hiring side of the developer advocacy. In addition to my job, I run a bunch of communities, locally, globally, online, offline. I'm really passionate about bringing developers together to have a good time, to learn something new, and to get better at what they do. And like mentioned, joining from Helsinki, Finland, and I'm also joined by my developer avocado on my social, and this is why I love my job. It is so great that I get to interact with all these people, hundreds of people face to face every month. So what do I mean when I say that this can be quite a lonely job? So if we look at all these groups and we think about what do I talk with them, what kind of activities we do. Let's first look at the developers on both sides. We talk about technology. We get excited about the individual details of some languages or tools, or we talk about the bigger impact in the society and the business. But we don't talk about developer advocacy. With the marketing and recruitment, we talk about reaching developers and we talk about content and we talk about how can we make the company a great place to work at for those developers. But we don't talk about developer advocacy. With human care and sales, we talk about how to make the company the best place for developers to work, how to get them the best support, the best projects, the best opportunities to learn. But we don't talk about developer advocacy. With community organizers, we talk about the events and enabling their organizations. And we little bit talk about developer advocacy, but not really that much. It's mostly the practical stuff. And with students and universities, we offer them opportunities to learn, opportunities to meet people, and opportunities to get into the industry. But we don't talk about developer advocacy. So that leaves me all alone in the center, with kind of nobody to talk about developer advocacy with. Nobody to get super excited about the things that I'm passionate about. It feels quite often that the things that I talk about with people is, like we heard earlier in the talks by the previous speakers, we talk about the impact. We talk about how the developer advocacy can enable those functions and what those people want to do. But we don't get excited about the things that I'm excited about. And it's not because people don't care. It's mostly because it's not their role to care. They have their own goals, their own needs, and their own things they need to achieve. solo developer relations person or solo dev advocate, I highly recommend seeking out these groups. And I hope that sharing my story helped some of you maybe give a name to this weird feeling and kind of a justification for how you can feel lonely in the really social job. I'm gonna be hanging out in the Discord. Super happy to answer any questions. Would love to hear your experiences. Am I the only one who's feeling lonely? And then ideas for how to tackle this in the day-to-day job. You can find me online on Twitter and on my website. Thanks to DevRelCon for having me as a speaker. And thanks for all of you coming and listen. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And I saw a couple of comments over in our speaker questions channel saying this totally hits home. And we have what I think is a really fantastic question to kick off our Q&A for you, which is, as a single person DevRel, do you set your own KPIs and OKRs? Does the management create those for you, or is it something else?
Yes. It's the combination of yes I do and it's something else. So the way I got this role was basically I worked as a developer at the company, and then I pitched this idea that we need somebody to run the DevRel operations. So it means that I told the company that we need this and I should be doing this, which means that I manage myself in a lot of ways. Together, of course, with these sub-teams that I mentioned.
Right.
But on the other hand, I don't have a lot of kind of hard metrics. I'm not a big believer in kind of metrifying in like human relationships. I think it's something that, of course, we follow the trends, we look at the numbers, but I don't want to set really hard kind of like metrics in a way, because then it can get into the way of being a human to another human being. And I think that's something that I really value in developer communities. And like you guys talked about in the previous set, it's about building relationships, not just one way, kind of communicating the content, but it's all about back and forth. And I think a key thing there is that it's not just between the company and the members of the community, but the key piece in community is the connections between people inside the community. So I love bringing developers together within the community as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a wonderful approach, and thank you for diving so deep into it. And a natural follow-on from that, which you touched on a little bit in your talk, but I think this gets more towards the practical, hard and fast of just time management, is with so many activities on your plate, how do you manage your time? And do you have any tips, particularly for context switching? And context switching, I think, is like the bane of every developer relations person, particularly like the trying to write a blog post waiting for a plane kind of situation. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Unfortunately, I don't have good advice. For me, I'm just a really stubborn guy, so it's just kind of like I kind of refuse to fail that. But yeah, it's really tough, and sometimes it's, days get long sometimes, and then especially when it comes to events, like I feel like I have 2-3 month sections a year in the spring and in the fall when there's a lot of stuff happening. And then the summer and the winter are kind of more relaxed. I can take a little bit longer holiday. I can focus a little bit more on kind of the planning and the content kind of side. But especially right now, when the live events are coming back, it's really hectic. And then you try to squeeze in some of the things that you need to get done in between hanging out with people and having a good time. But I'm not the best one when it comes to managing my time, so...
I think that's a useful experience. Sometimes knowing that there isn't a magical trick to make it work is just as useful as knowing the magical trick, right?
And I think one of the important things there is that you need to communicate that with the people you work with, and that's where I'm really lucky that I have like teams of colleagues outside the DevRel that are really kind of open and supportive. So they understand that sometimes if I'm at responsive in the next day.